Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Walk, Director of Conservation Programs for the Nature Conservancy in Illinois and unabashed bird enthusiast. If you're anything like me, you're ready for the weather to be consistently nice, for the garden centers to reopen, and to be able to spend more time outside looking for birds and doing some landscaping. So while we're all in our homes, I thought I'd take some time to share some things I've learned over the years in trying to merge my two hobbies of bird feeding and native plant landscaping. When I first got started on this, I used to think of bird feeding as something that I did during the fall and winter months, and gardening as something that I did during the spring and the summer. But I've come to appreciate that both of them can be year-round hobbies, and when integrated, can bring a surprising diversity of birds close to home. One of the neat things about wild birds is that this is our most frequent and familiar interaction with wildlife. And also, while so many of us are sheltering at home, when we're not able to go out looking for birds, they bring the miracle of migration right to our doorsteps. Any time of the year at my place, species like downy woodpeckers and cardinals and chickadees can be found. Back in March, the robins came back in force. Now I've got a pair that's trying to build a nest on the gutter downspout under the eaves of our roof. I realized a couple of weeks ago I'd seen the last of the dark-eyed juncos as they've moved on north. And just within the last couple of days, a whole blizzard of American goldfinches has showed up in our neighborhood. So while there are some residents that are here all the time, the cast of characters that you're likely to find near your home is going to be changing throughout the year. The basic needs of birds and other wildlife are just like our own, really, food, water, and shelter. So it helps to think about being able to provide all three of those elements in close proximity to be really successful in bringing birds close to your home. This doesn't have to be just on your property, recognizing that many of us are space constrained and birds are really mobile. So have a mindset within a cruising radius of maybe a couple of 100 yards of what's accessible to birds in your area. And if there's a way for you to provide a missing resource or complement something that's available on a neighboring property, you're going to have good success in bringing birds to your area. Also think about being able to diversify those types of resources. If it's a different type of plant, if it's a different type of food that you're able to provide, that's going to diversify the types of species that are going to be attracted to your space as well, rather than just providing more of the same. So after thinking horizontally in terms of what's available to birds within an area, it's important to think about layers horizontally and the different birds that use those different structures of vegetation as well, from canopy and subcanopy trees to the shrub and ground layer. There are different species that have preferences for those different layers of vegetation, from Baltimore orioles and the migrating warblers that tend to spend a lot of time up in the canopy, to species like rufous-sided towhees and white-throated sparrows that are going to spend most of their time near the ground layer. It's also important to think about the different services that those plants can provide, whether they're habitat for insects that are food for some, whether they're producing seeds that are available for birds, producing nuts, berries, flowers that are available at different times of the year. The more diverse resources that you're able to provide, the more diverse species of birds you're going to provide an opportunity to attract in your area. It's also important to think about just the different structures of those vegetation and the functions that they provide for birds. They need different types of habitat for different purposes, whether it's thinner screening cover for predator avoidance to dense evergreen cover that helps them get through harsh winter weather. Another thing that I've learned really by accident and trial by error was the tip of make a scene. This picture on the left, this is outside of our home office window. And really by dumb luck, it has worked out great for us with a tall overstory silver maple in the far background. In front of that, a mid-height blue spruce, and then closer in around the bird bath and bird feeders, a high bush cranberry bush and some black-eyed Susan has really created sort of a funnel that brings birds from different layers of the vegetation right down into our feeding station. And this is an area where we can just look out the window, look out this window often. It just provides a really nice visual point for us to enjoy this bit of landscaping. And then on the right side, this is our butterfly and hummingbird garden that's just off of our patio, with the blazing stars, the coneflowers, and spiderworts that provide us with pinks and purples throughout the season from really mid-May through September. And this is just right off of our patio. Anytime the weather's remotely decent during the warmer months of the year, that's where we are and spend a lot of time enjoying the goings on of the bees and butterflies and hummingbirds in this little plot. Quick word on some things to avoid. Be aware of putting plants out of place to where they're too close to buildings or going to interfere with overhead utility lines. On the left, this is a blue spruce that we inherited when we moved into this present home, but trees that are too close to homes can obviously damage roofs, gutters, sidings, damage the foundation, interfere with underground drainage. And this, back when we used to all commute to work, this is a tree that I would pass on the right. I nicknamed it Touchdown, which sort of made me chuckle on the inside, even though I felt really bad about the tortured way it had been pruned by the utility company. Those little plastic sticks that come with young plants in containers when you're getting them at the garden center are a helpful indication of how large a plant will get, but in my experience, they tend to get even larger than advertised. A few plants that have worked out really well for us and I've become particularly fond of, we have a hedge line of maple leaf viburnum. During the late spring and early summer months, these white blossoms are absolutely loaded with different species of bees, which are a lot of fun to watch. But it's really during fall migration that this plant is a true standout. The purple flowers or purple berries, excuse me, that come on in late summer and early fall are irresistible to species like gray catbirds, and we see a surprising number of fall migrating warblers and vireos using this viburnum shrub as well. As far as flowering seed producing perennials, you really can't go wrong with coneflower. I would say purple coneflower, but this now has been bred to come in a number of colors from yellow to red and every shade of purple. It's just a can't fail plant for providing reliable, long-lasting blooms that are really attractive to butterflies. The seed heads, once they mature, are irresistible to American goldfinches. The seed heads, if you leave them stand, they look pretty cool standing up against, standing out through the snow during the winter months, and give the dark-eyed juncos and American tree sparrows something to pick through for leftover seeds as well. Two species of plants that we like for hummingbirds. Bee balm is a native prairie forb in the mint family. The wild cultivar, wild variety, has light purple flowers. We have a variety that's deep red flowers and is just dynamite for attracting hummingbirds. The species that's pictured here on the right is cardinal flower in the Lobelia genus. I like it better than it likes me, or at least it doesn't care for my space so much. This is a plant that likes full sun but damp feet, and all of my sunny spots are too dry for it, and all of the juicy spots are too shady. But if you have a space that fits that criteria, give it a shot. And I'm not a native plant purist. It's hard for me to imagine getting through the early spring weeks without happy yellow mounds of tulips with daffodils around the house. But the undeniable reality is that there are a number of species that we've used for horticultural purposes, even for the purpose of bringing birds close to our homes and living spaces. And that's been the mechanism by which they've escaped and become serious invasive species as threats to our natural areas. So birds like robins will come in and eat the berries off of honeysuckle and Bradford pear and other species, and then distribute those seeds out in the wild areas with little packets of fertilizer and become really impossible to control. So please use extreme caution when picking a non-native plant as a landscaping choice. Moving on to bird feeding, for us, success begins and ends with black oil sunflower. There's almost every seed-eating species will use black oil sunflower. Most species seem to prefer it over other kinds of seeds. If I get suet cakes, for example, as a Christmas stocking stuffer, I'll gladly offer those out. If you want to get fancy and try Niger or thistle seed for finches, great. Safflower for cardinals, go for it. Spend more money on peanut chips for woodpeckers, by all means. But for us, this is our go-to and the only thing that we offer year-round in our yard. The only downside of black oil sunflower are the hulls from this plant. So that's another thing to think about, is where you're willing to tolerate some of that waste material that comes off of this, as well as the waste from the birds, in planning out your bird feeding station. Back when I was in college, I had a neighbor who would actually get out his shop vac to go out and clean up the sunflower holes under his bird feeder. And while it was pretty hilarious to watch a guy vacuuming his yard, I totally get the sentiment. I just go out with a rake every couple of months, pick up those holes and throw them in the compost bin. And we've counted it up for the purpose of this presentation. And over the years, we've had at least 42 different species that we've seen on and under our sunflower feeder. So definitely a can't go wrong option for bird feeding to bring in a diversity of species. And here's why we continue to do that year round. These guys, red rose-breasted grosbeaks, are just now arriving in our area, soon to be followed by the indigo buntings. We just enjoy a different variety of species that come to the black oil sunflower on a year-round basis. Seasonally, I'll put out a slice of orange during spring migration, and we'll get the orioles to show a little bit of interest for a few weeks, but that seems to wane in our area for some reason over the summer. But then we'll put out the sugar water for hummingbirds and offer that from late April through October in our area. One tip on what I would suggest not offering out there is resist the urge to use the totally lowest price mixed bird seed. That includes a lot of cracked corn and millet seed for a couple of reasons. One, the birds really just come in and they'll high grade out the sunflower seed that they want, and you end up with a lot of waste on the ground, which increases your risk of attracting rodents and other pests. And also the only species that seems to be really attracted to the cracked corn are house sparrows, which most of us would rather not attract to our area anyway, being kind of being a non-native and unwelcome nest box intruder for other more desirable species. Another thing, resist the urge to throw out stale crackers and bread. It seems that those are things that are really only attractive to undesirable birds like starlings and gulls and crows and pigeons, species that tend to cause problems when they get in large numbers in congregations near homes and businesses. And also just want to note the plight of pollinators that we're facing in this country and around the world. The near threatened status of the migratory monarch is a grave concern, but then also just the ecosystem services that pollinators provide and how important they are for the fruit and vegetable crops that we depend on. The happy news is that with native plant landscaping, you're likely to get the 4B co-benefits of blooms, birds, bees, and butterflies. And my final tip, maybe the most important one, after you've put all of this thought and effort into native plant landscaping for the birds, don't forget to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks for watching.